Hi, lovely booktubers. This is Raina Read Stuff. Welcome, welcome back, whichever that may be. I am Debs. I wasn't going to do this today because I did a video yesterday, but over the last 3 days, the first 3 days of September, I've read 10 Shorty September books. So I thought if I left it any longer, the video would be too long and get right out of hand. Now, I haven't been reading sort of have. My car's off the road at the moment. It's with the mechanic. I can't go anywhere. The weather's been lovely. I've been sitting in the garden reading, and these really are very short. So, for those who don't know, Shorty September is the brainchild of Bert and Sian at Past Story Times and Heather. I will link both of their channels below. I think it's a brilliant idea. I have mainly been reading mood read stuff, but selecting the short ones. So, Heather has designed this beautiful thing. It's a zine. You can print it off. And there are the 12 prompts in here. I filled in several of the prompts, but several other of the books are just short. So, I'll work my way through the prompts in here first. Shorty Shorts. Shorty Shorts. I read this. A Very Long Way from Anywhere Else by Ursula Guin. 76 pages. It didn't take very long. It's beautiful. It's the story of two kids. And, well, I say kids. One is 17 and one is 18. Owen is our protagonist. He's 17. He's a bit different from he finds it difficult to make friends. People have expectations of him that he doesn't want to fulfill. He's a bit of a loner. But then he meets Natalie, and Natalie is a musician, and they meet on the bus and just strike up a conversation. And it's the story of them investigating themselves, and it's almost like a coming of age book, but they don't quite come of age. See what I mean? But it was really lovely. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Half and Half Shorts. This was the longest book that I've read in the last few days. Half and Half Shorts is read a book and then watch the movie. So this, properly called A Kestrel for a Knave by Barry Hines, is the story of, again, a young lad. He's a bit of an outcast. He comes from a poor family in a mining town. His older brother bullies him mercilessly. He works down the pit. His mum had an affair. His father left, and he's always getting into trouble sometimes through faults of his own. He seems to have very light fingers and steals anything that isn't nailed down. But he is interested in nature, and he finds a kestrel, and he trains this kestrel. He calls it Kes. It's written in the vernacular, so it's based in northern England, and I've read a couple of books in the vernacular recently. One of them was Cut and Run by a guy called Bill McGee, which was written in a Glaswegian dialect, which I found quite challenging. This one I didn't find so challenging. I don't live that far away from where this is based, and so the accent here is halfway, I would imagine, between mine and the Yorkshire accent they're using in this book. Kes was turned into a film by Ken Loach, and it had limited release. It was really only released in the UK. It wasn't released in the USA because they didn't think anyone would be able to understand the language in it. And I wonder whether either of the books, either Cut and Run or this, would be accessible to English speakers who aren't actually from the UK. I think probably, I think they'd certainly struggle with the Glaswegian one, and maybe this too. But it's a beautiful story. There's a lot of, considering it's based in a mining town, there's a lot of nature writing in it, and the relationship between Billy and his Kestrel is just incredible. And the film's very good too. It's free on Channel 4 at the moment, by the way, if you're in the UK and you fancy watching it. Right. I also did, now, this Mum Shorts, a comfort read. When I was very small, we moved to Australia, where my father was a rocket scientist, and we went out there as part of the European Space Programme, and we were there a few years. We were based in Woomera in South Australia. My earliest memories are of Australia, even though I was born in England. We were there for a few years, and when we returned, my godparents bought me this. It's called The Tintookies and Little Fella Bindi. And it's by a man called Peter Scrivens, who was mainly known in Australia for being a puppeteer. And he had puppets of these. He used to do shows with them. And this was the most important book in my life for probably about 18 months. I read it constantly. I missed Australia very much, and when we came back to the UK, it was January. I think it was freezing. Who wants to come back to England in January? I couldn't decide. I mean, I still love the book, but rereading it changed something. I mean, one of the reasons I liked it, look at these colours. These colours reminded me of what I thought was home. The colours of the Australian bush. That's what I missed, I think. I mean, none of this greyness, none of this snow malarkey, even in spring. I mean, what was all that green doing about? I read this again. I enjoyed it again until I got to the last page. And there, in the last page, is that picture. Now, little fella Bindi is an Aboriginal boy. He befriends the animals who are living out in the bush. Tintookies are a race of Aboriginal warriors who have gone into the sky, and they are responsible for bringing the morning every day. The reason I've got a problem with that picture at the back is at the end of this book, Bindi is persuaded to go off to school, and that then is his uniform. That's him in uniform, and it just smacks of, let's take these Aboriginal children and steal them and put them in schools and turn them into what we think are acceptable little Aboriginal children, who are basically little white children but with a different colour skin. Everybody knows the scandals about the English and Australian governments taking children from Aboriginal tribes and fostering them out to white families and putting them in schools where they could learn what it meant to be a member of the British Commonwealth, and sort of spoilt the book, really. So what's that? I will treasure this book forever. I've carried it around with me for about 50 years. But I looked at it again for the first time almost and didn't like Imperial role in it. Anyway, enough of that. Ripped shorts. This was fun. I read a graphic novel. I read Hellboy. I really liked it. This is by Mike Mignola and Duncan Fegredo. Loved the graphics in it. I might read some more graphic novels because this was fun. It's the Queen of the Witches has been resurrected, and Hellboy must try to stop her. But Hellboy doesn't really want to be king, and a lot of other people seem to be intent on making him king and raising an army so he and Big Bad Witch can battle. I might read some more. I really enjoyed that. Lederhosen. This is my favourite bit. This is my favourite section, I think. This is Works in Translation. I read Elegy for Kosovo. Ismail Kadare, one of my favourite authors. He's an Albanian. This is his parable on the legend of the battle on the field of blackbirds, which took place in 1389. Yes, 1389. It's a real battle, but people don't know very much about it. And so a whole legend has been created around it. The Ottoman Empire, Sultan, was it Murad? Murad the First. Yes. Invades the Balkans, and a combined army of soldiers and princes from Albania, from Serbia, from Hungary, all over the region gather to fight the Turks. All anybody really knows is most people died. Sultan Murad died. A lot of the princes from the Balkan principalities died. Soldiers on both sides died. But it was the first foray into that region by the Ottomans. Ismail Kadare just writes beautifully, and he's built up this parable of how at the centre of this battle was the fight for Kosovo, and the Serbians always blamed the Albanians for taking Kosovo and said it should be theirs, and the Albanians blamed the Serbians for taking Kosovo and said it should be theirs. And in the end, this Ottoman Empire comes in and just tries to take everything. And there are similarities between the most recent disputes over Kosovo. It's brilliant. What else do we have? I think, is that it for the... Oh no, a book I read because I was trying to look cool. Didn't enjoy this so much. Vasco Popper. I didn't know Vasco Popper. A Yugoslavian poet he's described as. Actually, now Yugoslavia has been dismantled. It's Serbia. These were poems from the 60s, mainly. Oh no, 50s and 60s. I didn't really understand. I'm trying to get into more into poetry. There's lots of poetry I do enjoy, but I need to understand it. So this one, randomly, this one's called The Hunter. Someone goes in without knocking, goes into somebody's one ear and comes out the other. Goes in with the steps of a match. The step of a lighted match dances round inside his head. He's made it. Somebody goes in without knocking, goes into somebody's one ear and doesn't come out the other. He's done for. I mean, I understand the words. I don't know. Maybe I need to try harder. Oh, the other one, Pedro Pascal shorts. This is an unexpected purchase. I unexpectedly bought the box set of Penguin Moderns and I'm working my way through them. So I've read 3. Chinua Achebe, Africa's tarnished name. This is brilliant. It's a series of essays on the appropriation of Africa and how he feels about it. Now, the first one is about his home nation, Nigeria, just after it was granted independence in 1960. And basically, it's about what a mess it was, and how difficult everything was initially. Uh, it's interesting. It's really interesting. The second one, Travelling White, is about he'd won a scholarship which was financing him travelling around to different places in America. And one of the places he went to was southern Rhodesia, as it was. And he wanted to go out to see some waterfalls, so he got on a bus, sat down just behind the driver, and didn't notice until they'd moved off that he was in the white section. And that never really occurred to me. I mean, obviously in places like South Africa and Rosa Parks in the States, it didn't occur to me that a Nigerian in another African country would be berated for sitting in the wrong place on a bus. But it is very interesting. There's 4 of them in here. Africa's Tarnished Name and Africa is People is the last 2. And one of them talks about the way literature has treated Africa and how the wrong impression has been given over so many years, particularly from the 18th and 19th centuries. Under particular flack is Joseph Conrad. The next one, Susan Sontag, Notes on a Camp. 2 essays in here. The first one is Notes on Camp, and it is absolutely brilliant. And she is writing from the perspective of somebody who likes camp, but also thinks bits of it are stupid. It's really, really interesting. And it reminded me of Garb August, where the argument is just because you say something is camp doesn't mean it's bad. And in Garb August, just because you say something is trashy doesn't mean it's bad. It's a really good essay. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than the second one, which was entitled One Culture and the New Sensibility. This I also enjoyed very much. Now this says on the back, a dreamlike meditation on memory, food, paintings, a fond uncle, and the improbable beauty of Bologna from the visionary thinker and art critic who is John Berger. I'd not read any John Berger before. And this, it's just lovely. It's memories, it's about Bologna, it's about art, it's about architecture, it's about colour. The beginning is about this favoured uncle. And it's written beautifully, almost poetic in its language. And I absolutely loved it and will certainly look out for some more John Berger. Finally, book number 10. I finally got round to reading The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Gilman, not to check off any of the prompts, but just because I've had it for ages, really wanted to read it. When something is that small, what is my excuse for not reading it? I loved it. Psychological, a woman suffering from nerves, so her doctor husband said, is they're staying in a house temporarily, and she is closeted upstairs in a room which has this yellow wallpaper, which just gradually begins to haunt her almost. And it's a descent into madness. Or is it? Very good. Enjoyed it very much. Anyway, that's quite a lot of books for 3 days of Shorty September. I have literally going around my bookcases. That's short, that's short, that's short. So I think I'm going to have a fun month. Thanks to Bert and Sian and Heather. I will put all the information about the books and everything else below. Please like and subscribe. That would be lovely. Comments on anything I've read, anything you're reading, or just a chat. That would be great too. Thank you for stopping by, and I will report in on the other short books next week. I'll probably do it on Friday actually, because 30th of September is a Friday, and then that will tie in just nicely. But yes, I shall speak to you soon. Bye.